be taking a Monster High bootlegged doll and turning her into one of my most favorite characters from Undertale, Miss Muffet. Now, this is my first time customizing a Monster High doll, so if you see anything that I could improve on, please let me know in the comments down below. The first thing I did before I could customize her was chop off all the red hair as close as I can to the scalp. In order to get those tiny little hairs out, set the doll's hair in boiling water. This will let the glue inside the doll's head become soft enough, making it easier for you to take tweezers or scissors once it's cool enough to hold to pull it right out of the head. In order to remove the face up, I used brush cleaner and dipped a Q-tip in it and rubbed it all over the face. Now, the paint may get on your fingers, so you may want to use paper towels to go underneath the head. And after I was done with the head, I moved on to doing the body. The reason why I'm putting this stuff also on the body is to remove the original sealant they put on the doll's body. If you leave the sealant on the doll's body, it will make it hard later when you want to actually add a different color, a pigment on the doll. Caution, when you're finally finished using these products, make sure to wash the doll and your hands thoroughly with soap and water. This will make sure that you don't damage any other products that your hands may come in contact with later. After she was fully dry, it was time to remove some eyeballs. Now, Miss Muffet only has 5 eyes, so I had to actually sand off the first 2 top ones. Another thing Miss Muffet doesn't have is she doesn't have human lips. So here, I shaved off the bottom lips, so she'll at least have a top lip. Now, if you're wondering what kind of materials I'm using throughout this whole process, I'll leave a link down below so you can see what I'm using. After I chopped those off, I used epoxy to make her middle eye and then cover up the hairline holes. I did this because the hairline that was for the original doll was farther down, and Miss Muffet's hair actually does not come down that far, so I had to put a little bit of epoxy there to cover up the extra holes that I did not need for the hairline. Once I got done adding epoxy on the bottom of her lips to smooth it out so it didn't show up any holes or anywhere where I cut off the bottom lip, I realized Muffet doesn't have ears, so I had to go back, cut off those ears, and then take epoxy to that and cover up the holes where the ears used to be and smooth that out. I just let it set for 24 hours before I went back and sanded the whole thing to make everything smoother. I then took the doll's head, washed her with soap and water. Before you start painting at all, you have to seal the doll with a workable sealant, safe for plastic, before you start painting. This will also help the paint be able to stick to the doll too as you work along in your project. I airbrushed the doll until she was completely white. Once she was fully covered on both sides of the ceiling and completely dry, then I did the airbrush again, but this time I did it in a purple pigment. I kept layering this on until she was a complete purple on all parts of her body. Now, this process does take a long time, but I was doing this that way I don't get any bumps or little brush strokes in her skin or anything. I wanted, as best I could, a nice even coating on the doll. After I was moving some of her joints around, like this, I noticed that the pigment was kind of rubbing off. You can now see the white pigment and not the purple right there. So I'm actually going to save her paint in a little jar, that way I can touch up. Now that she was almost completely purple, it was time to start doing the doll's hair. The first process is to paint the doll's scalp black. While the doll's scalp is drying, start preparing yarn into doll hair. All I did was take a pat brush and started brushing down the hair, loosening the fibers up. You keep doing this process over and over and over, and it's easy to work with smaller strands instead of long strands. But just make sure that you cut your strands long enough that it'll be longer than the doll's hair itself, because as you brush along, you'll start losing some of the fibers as it loosens up. Then I used a rooting tool and stuck that through the holes Muffet's hair. If you also want to know how I made this rooting tool, I'll also leave that down in the link below. Once I was finished with the hair, I put glue inside her head. Use the end of an old paintbrush, mix that around so it would pick up all of the hairs that are inside her head. Once I let that glue in her head dry for a couple days, it was time to start the first layer of her face up. In order to make her hair nice and flat and not so poofed out, I took a hair straightener on the lowest setting and worked on her hair. I also did the same with her little pigtails, and I had to go back and forth between using the iron and taking little scissors and chopping off the excess hair until I actually got it to the way I wanted her hair to look. And then once I was all done, I just covered up her face and used a lightly sprayed it with some normal like hairspray you would use for your own hair. In order to make her look a little less dead in the face and everything, add little dots to her eyes and then add a little bit of chalk pastels to her cheek and everything to make her look a little more lively and less blah. And then I add a little bit of gloss in her eyes so her eyes will be a little bit shiny but not over shiny. For her top and for her bottoms, I'm actually going to have a link to my DeviantArt where you can actually print out the pattern if you want to make this outfit. I bought Bratzilla doll shoes. I sanded them and spray painted them black. For the stockings, I used a tutorial that I got from Locker's Colors. Now what I will show you guys how to make is the bows for her hair, which you can also use to make the little bow that is on her chest. First thing you need to do is take those two pieces of bow, sew the top and bottom. Once you have sewn those together, take it and turn it inside out. You may want to use a chopstick or little scissors, and then you're just going to sew those two ends together and then flip it inside out. That way the sewn in pieces in the inside. And then take the thread, poke it a little bit in the center of the back and just wrap it around the middle. This will cause the fabric to squeeze down and give you that like bow effect to it. And then once you're done, just take the needle and then loop it through underneath all that thread that you have sewn, and then just tie it all together and tie it really tight, but not too tight where you accidentally snap it and make it all come apart. Then you're going to take the smallest piece of your pattern, put a little bit of glue. You can try Elmer's glue. I'm actually using hot glue. Carefully fold it over, press that down, and do this to the other side. So you take that tiny little piece, put it in the center, pull on the one side over as tight as you can, glue that down, and then pull the other side over on top of it and pull that down. Dab a glue on the back, and then push it against the little rubber bands on Muffet's hair, and just hold it until it's dry. I actually don't think I did too bad first time customizing my own Monster High doll. The only thing I would like to try to change was the way I did skin from black to purple. I think there was a better way to do that. If anyone has any suggestions of what I could do different next time when I customize, let me know down in the comments below, or just let me know what you thought. Other than that, thanks for watching. Have a good day.